Hi Jennifer, thank you for joining. Oh, I'm glad you liked the stitch card. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving, yes. I posted some kind of like Thanksgiving themed cards on my channel. I hope you can check them out. And this one was one of them. Remember this one? That was one of them. Like a little thank you appreciation card to like a friend. Yeah. Super cute. Shout out to Jennifer. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Willow. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Tiago. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Cherry. Shout out to Marilyn. Shout out to Charlie. Shout out to Aiden. Shout out to Lila. Shout out to Skylar. Shout out to Naomi. Shout out to Sebastian. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Maddie. Shout out to Paria. Or oh, sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Nami. Shout out to Raffaele. Shout out to Evelyn. Shout out to Alonso. Shout out to Natalie. Shout out to Daniel. Oops. Shout out to Akansha. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Marissa. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Gigi. Shout out to Yuna. Shout out to Cat's Eye. Shout out to Adriana. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying my live streams. Shout out to Autumn. Shout out to Robin. Shout out to Sergio. Let me write it again because I kind of messed up. Shout out to Sergio. There we go. Shout out to Yunche. Shout out to Marnie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Joanna. Shout out to Sarah. Shout out to Baba Queen. Thank you so much for subscribing. Shout out to Javid. Shout out to Avery. Shout out to Nyasia. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Matthew. Shout out to Jesse. Shout out to Abby. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Landon. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Mila. Shout out to Nyla. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Richie. Like and subscribe if you enjoy my shout outs. Shout out to Fio. Shout out to Emily. Shout out to Darixa. Shout out to Anhad. Shout out to Gabby. Shout out to E-Gamer. Shout out to Yuna. Shout out to Stephanie. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 100 likes. Shout out to Miles. Shout out to Florencia. Shout out to Hannah. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Joey. Shout out to Conley. Shout out to Frida. Shout out to Isaac. Shout out to Akira. Shout out to Adelia. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Bristol. Shout out to Sydney. Shout out to these people. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 100 likes. On to the next page. Thank you for being here. Let's try to get to 100 likes. Shout out to Nisha or Nisha. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Andrea. Shout out to Caitlin. Shout out to Sarai. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Kenna. Shout out to Josiah. Shout out to Chris. Shout out to Kinsley. Shout out to Cameron. Shout out to Serenity. Shout out to Chelsea. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Betsy. Shout out to Jumana. Shout out to Palmyra. Shout out to Rum. Shout out to Gavin. Shout out to Litzy. Shout out to Melania. Shout out to Mitsuri. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying my content. Shout out to Izzy. Leave a like. Let's try to get to 100 likes, please. Shout out to Alice. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Kono. Shout out to Kennedy. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Enala. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Hina. Shout out to Amelia. Shout out to JC or Jace. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Paxton. Shout out to Hope. Shout out to Maria. Shout out to Alessandra. Shout out to Brooke. Shout out to Emily. Shout out to Hannah. Shout out to Mutarit. Sorry if I mess up your name. Shout out to Jimena. Shout out to Addison. Shout out to London. Shout out to Ashley. Shout out to Ness. Shout out to Kaya. Shout out to Bailey. Shout out to Catalia. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Samara or Samara. Shout out to Connor. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 100 likes. Shout out to Athena. Shout out to Connor. Oh, I already put Connor. Shout out to Mina. Shout out to Kendall. Shout out to Kiana. Shout out to Heather. Shout out to Zariah. Shout out to Bria. Shout out to Luis. Shout out to Nora. Shout out to Jura. Shout out to Brooklyn. Shout out to Ebony. Shout out to Rhonda. Shout out to Allie. or Ollie. Shout out to Basma. Shout out to Jen. Shout out to Barbara. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. We're almost at 100 likes. We're halfway there. Thank you for being here. Some of you mentioned Thanksgiving. If you check out my content, I make little cards like these. Like this would be perfect for Thanksgiving, like a thank you card. Thankful for you. So if you want to check out my other content and support, please like and subscribe. I would truly appreciate it. Back to the shout outs. Shout out to Lorene and Joanne. Oh, how do you spell that? Joanne. Shout out to Pamela. Shout out to Miko and Sven. Shout out to Lauren. Shout out to Fadia. Shout out to Summer. Shout out to Janae. Shout out to Caitlin. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Shanoya. Whoops, I messed up. Shout out to Shanoya. Shout out to Joseph. Shout out to Kyra. Shout out to Kay. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Lila. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Fatima and Harun. Shout out to Violetta. Shout out to McKenna. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Lily. Thank you for subscribing. We're almost at 100 likes. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. Shout out to Bloomy. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Peyton. Shout out to Jasmine. Shout out to Amelia. Shout out to Lola. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Victoria. Shout out to Dynasty. Shout out to Salma. Shout out to Brianna. Shout out to Archie. Shout out to Allie. Whoops, Allie. Shout out to Aaliyah. Shout out Rocio. Shout out to Daphne. Shout out to Liza. Thank you for subscribing. Or Lisa, sorry. Shout out to Zara. Shout out to Jaslyn. Shout out to Kaylin. Shout out to Azara. Shout out to Adelia. Thank you for subscribing. We're almost at 100 likes, only 20 more likes. Shout out to Brian. Shout out to Talita. Shout out to Sammy. Shout out to Sunny. Shout out to Megan. Shout out to Yana. Shout out to Garcelin. Shout out to Emerson. Shout out to Grace. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Max. Shout out to Gracelyn. Shout out to Sunny. We're only 9 likes away from 100 likes. Shout out to Lola. Thank you for subscribing. Please subscribe if you enjoy my shout outs. Also check out my other content that I post. Shout out to Hannah. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Hilda. Shout out to Yash. Shout out to Yvette. Shout out to Pavia, thank you for subscribing. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Lily, thank you for subscribing. Shout out to JJ. Shout out to Oliver, thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Maya, thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Sage. Shout out to Cassia, thank you for subscribing and happy birthday. Shout out to these people. Thank you for 100 likes. On to the next page. Thank you for being here. Like and subscribe if you like the shout outs. Shout out to Lorena. Shout out to Mitchell. Give me 1 second. There we go. Shout out to Jacob. Shout out to Kyla. Shout out to Alex. Shout out to Amanda. Shout out to Millie. Shout out to Dennis. Shout out to Wendy. Shout out to Monica. Shout out to Maria. Shout out to Robin. Shout out to Valentina. Shout out to Riley. Shout out to Val. Shout out to Mila. Shout out to Evelyn. Shout out to Nicole. Shout out to Spencer. Shout out to Reese. Shout out to Jolene. Or Jolene. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Ari. Shout out to Ismael. Shout out to Dariana. Shout out to Helena. Shout out to Zania. Shout out to Talia. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Janice. Shout out to Rizka. Shout out to Mona. Shout out to Halo. Shout out to Fern. Shout out to Stephanie. Shout out to Kenna. Shout out to Luna. Shout out to Audrey. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 200 likes. Shout out to Iris. Shout out to Leonardo. Shout out to Amira. Shout out to Gabby. Shout out to Ryan. Shout out to Amber. Shout out to Hallie. Shout out to Scarlett. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. We're almost at 200 likes. We're almost there. Shout out to, yes, let me push up let me scoot it up. How's that? Shout out to Aurora. Shout out to Lainey. Shout out to Maria. Shout out to Penguin. Shout out to Jackson. Shout out to Alan. Shout out to Zainab. Shout out to Livy. Shout out to Yaretsi. Shout out to Justice. Shout out to Vanessa. Shout out to Ruth. Shout out to Olivier. Shout out to Ellie. Shout out to Fatima. Shout out to Skyler. Oh, sorry, Silver. Shout out to Princess. Shout out to Regina. Shout out to Ansley. Shout out to Maria. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Sheska. Shout out to Amelia. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Please like and subscribe if you want to support me. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Vael. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Addison. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Audrina. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Nina. Shout out to Hallie. Shout out to Reese. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Charlotte. Shout out to Kendall. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Saina. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Nolan. Shout out to Aaliyah. Shout out to Tufi. Shout out to Fabricio. Is it Fabricio? Oh yeah. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Natalie. Shout out to Noelle. Shout out to Amelia. Shout out to Rafaela. Shout out to Aisleen. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Martina. Shout out to Alana. Shout out to Jack. Shout out to Hannah. Shout out to Judith. Shout out to Cody. Shout out to Autumn. Shout out to Sloan. Shout out to Lydia. Shout out to Naomi. Shout out to Savannah. Shout out to Meg. Shout out to Athena. Shout out to Henry. Shout out to Masco. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Only 25 more likes till we get to 200. Shout out to Bryce. Shout out to Adeline. Shout out to Magdalena. Shout out to Talia. Shout out to Ben. Shout out to Paisley. Shout out to Velvet. Shout out to Andre. Shout out to Melanie. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Josefa. Shout out to Alana. Shout out to Elaine. Shout out to Shauna. Shout out to Dairo. Shout out to Tahira. Shout out to Summer. We're 10 away from 200. Shout out to Jojo. Shout out to Damien. Oh, Damien with an A. Damien. Let me rewrite that. Hold on. Shout out to Damien. There we go, much better. Shout out to Chris. Shout out to Abel. Shout out to Joelle. Shout out to Katie. Shout out to Allie. Shout out to Celine. Shout out to Pearl. Shout out to Sophie. Shout out to Kyle. Shout out to Kinsley. Shout out to Mona. Shout out to Scarlett. Shout out to Cassie. Shout out to these people. We're almost at 200 likes, only one more. Give me like 30 seconds, I'll be right back. I'm so sorry. Yeah, you're right. That took longer than 30 seconds. Thank you so much for your patience. Took longer than I expected. I'm so sorry. Thank you for being here. Thank you for waiting. Shout out to Michelle. Thank you for subscribing. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Madison. Shout out to Edie or Ed. Shout out to Layla. Shout out to Zane. Shout out to Joyce. Let me write that again because I kind of messed up. Shout out to Joyce. Shout out to London. Shout out to Chris. Shout out to Kinsley. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Isabella. Shout out to Justice. Shout out to Darlin. Thank you for subscribing. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Braxton. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to JC. Shout out to Gia. Shout out to Zane. Shout out to Alberni. Thank you for subscribing. Alberni. Shout out to Nicola. Shout out to Romina. Shout out to Jupiter. Shout out to Leanne. Shout out to Mars. Shout out to Lavender. Shout out to Chris. Or shout out to Chris. Shout out to Blue. Shout out to Anaya. Shout out to Red. Shout out to Michael. Shout out to Kyrie. Shout out to Josiah. Shout out to Judith. Shout out to Tyler. Shout out to Skyla. Shout out to Layla. Or Lila, sorry. Shout out to Diana. Shout out to Hannah. Shout out to Brittany. Happy birthday. Shout out to Lorena. Shout out to Tilly. Shout out to Vejko. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Naomi. Shout out to Justin. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Jaina. Shout out to Linda. Shout out to Chloe. Shout out to Scarlett. Shout out to Magdalena. Shout out to Ryan. Shout out to David. Shout out to Virginia. Shout out to Alanis. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Jordan. Shout out to Eve. Shout out to Mirab. Shout out to Meredith. Shout out to Peter. Shout out to Sienna. Shout out to Caleb. Shout out to Maya. Shout out to Lexi. Shout out to Tabitha. Shout out to Noah. Shout out to Dahlia. Shout out to these people. Thank you so much for being here. On to the next page. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 300 likes. We're almost there. Subscribe if you like my shout outs. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Ryan. Shout out to Dame. Shout out to Kens. Shout out to Skylin. Shout out to Opal. Shout out to Rain. Shout out to Amber. Shout out to Christian. Shout out to Addison. Shout out to Brianna. Shout out to Nova. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Skyly. Shout out to Lucy. Shout out to Sienna. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Rhett. Shout out to Aaliyah. Shout out to Selena. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to John. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Jax. Shout out to Bella. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Sharon. Shout out to Nika. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Violetta. Shout out to Eli or Ellie. Shout out to Adam. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Brinsley. Shout out to Rosa. Shout out to Jaslyn. Shout out to Winter. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Samira. Shout out to Jazara. Shout out to Hope. Shout out to Gerald. Shout out to Phoebe. Shout out to Isis. Shout out to Millie Miles. Shout out to Deja. Shout out to Chloe. Shout out to Mario. Shout out to Betty. Shout out to Sandra. Shout out to Jeremiah. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Nevea. Shout out to Tate. Shout out to Laura. Shout out to Teresa. Shout out to Talia. Shout out to Beverly. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. We're almost at 300 likes. Shout out to Jiho. Shout out to Brooke. Shout out to Maria. Shout out to Nova. Shout out to Alana. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Natalie. Shout out to Marnie. Shout out to Lexus. Shout out to Kaya. Shout out to Marcus. Shout out to Ellie. Shout out to Jalen. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Cecilia. Shout out to Rebecca. Shout out to Aria. Shout out to Nadia. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to CD. G. Shout out to Santiago. Shout out to Brita. Shout out to Mackenzie. Oh, how do you spell Mackenzie? Oops. Oh, there we go. Mackenzie. Shout out to Lorena. Shout out to Schuler. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Rafine. Shout out to Kyle. Shout out to Brianna. Shout out to Carla. Shout out to Chris. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Haley. Shout out to Mila. Shout out to Mauricio. Shout out to Aisha. Shout out to Alana. Shout out to Paisley. Shout out to Mirana. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Avery. Shout out to Kalani. Shout out to Sanish. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Tessa. Shout out to Luis. Shout out to Carla. Shout out to Aurora. Shout out to Jan. Shout out to Jennifer. Shout out to Juliet. Oops, I messed up. Shout out to Juliet. There we go. Shout out to Emily. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Anna Julia. Shout out to Layla. Shout out to Arianis. Shout out to, oh sorry, Judith. Shout out to Judith. Shout out to Dresden. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Aria Lila. Shout out to Riley. Leave a like. We're almost at 300 likes. Shout out to Asher. Shout out to Khalil. Shout out to Luna. Shout out to Michaela. Shout out to Louisa. Shout out to Alexa. Shout out to Lucky. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Elise. Or what is it? Elise. Shout out to Elisa. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying my shout outs. Shout out to Tilly. Shout out to Deva. Shout out to Calandra. Shout out to Messi. Shout out to Carly. Shout out to Sharon. Shout out to Ariel. Shout out to Mila. Shout out to Aileen or Eileen. Shout out to Kaylin or Kylan. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Masaya. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Maya. Shout out to Rin. Shout out to Cleo. Shout out to Tiffia. Shout out to Kathleen. Shout out to Yara. Shout out to Angie. Shout out to these people. Only 20 more likes. We're almost there. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying the live stream. On to the next page. Shout out to Journey. Shout out to Ash. Shout out to Benji. Shout out to Homero. Shout out to Arianis. Shout out to Jamily. Shout out to Adeline. Shout out to April. Shout out to Kiki. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Hermu. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to AC. Shout out to Sky. Shout out to Rakib. Or Rakeb. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Julie. Shout out to Kevin. Shout out to Nyla. Shout out to Callan. Shout out to Megan. Shout out to Naylon or Naylon. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Ophelia. Shout out to Julia. Shout out to Jessica. Shout out to Mila or Mila. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Ariana. Shout out to Muhammad. Shout out to Yasmin or Yasmin. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Maria. Shout out to Aria Lila. Shout out to Yuko. Shout out to Libby. Shout out to Aveline. Shout out to Michaela. Shout out to Sarah. Leave a like. We're almost at 300 likes, only 5 more likes. Shout out to Kayo. Shout out to Kali. Shout out to Rosalie. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Valentina. Shout out to Alex. Shout out to Aaliyah. Shout out to Micah or Mika. Shout out to Cassie. Shout out to Yamulet. Shout out to Brayden. Shout out to Elias. Shout out to Elizabeth. Shout out to Felix. Shout out to Hate. Shout out to Zariah. Shout out to Jazzy. Like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. Shout out to Kiki. Shout out to Farayo. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Piper. Shout out to Cash. Shout out to Aiden. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Drew. Shout out to Garrett. Shout out to Willow. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Casey. Shout out to Yang Juni. Shout out to Serenity. Shout out to Leanne. Shout out to Kenna. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Like and subscribe if you enjoy my live streams. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Bailey. Shout out to April. Shout out to Lilo. Shout out to Ariani. Shout out to John. Shout out to Bob. Shout out to Amy. Shout out to Nelly. Shout out to Elodie. Shout out to Louisa. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Jazzy. Shout out to Matthew. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Malaysia. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Jesse. Shout out to Max. Shout out to Kaylin. Shout out to Olay. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Benjamin. Shout out to Jared. Shout out to Maddie. Shout out to Journey. Shout out to Iris. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Manuela. Shout out to Callie. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Maria Jose. Shout out to Elmi. Shout out to Kata. Shout out to Kevin. Shout out to Val. Shout out to Triana. Oops. Shout out to Triana with one N. Shout out to Zyla. Shout out to Alexa. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Deja. Shout out to Bang Chan. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Jimena. Shout out to Tiana. Shout out to Mitchell. Shout out to Shreya. Shout out to Gerardo. Shout out to Ziana. Shout out to Destiny. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Han. Shout out to Melanie. Shout out to King. Shout out to Helen. Shout out to Gian. How do you spell that? Sorry. Gian. Jin. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Janae. Shout out to Stella. Shout out to Kira. Shout out to Willow. Shout out to Marley. Shout out to Deshawn. Shout out to Alan. Shout out to Aspen. Shout out to Dwayne. Shout out to Jamari. Shout out to Jamie or Jaime. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Anaya. Shout out to Micah or Mika. Shout out to Kaylor. Shout out to Jenny. Shout out to Lady. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Thank you for being here. Like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. Let's try to get to 400 likes. I would truly appreciate it. Thank you so much. Shout out to Jessica. Shout out to Kayla. Or Kyla, sorry. Shout out to Gasoline. Shout out to Max. Shout out to Lisa. Shout out to Brianna. Shout out to Veronica. Shout out to Louise. Shout out to Marana. Or Marana. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Alita. Shout out to Selena. Shout out to Rahi. Shout out to, oh no, it's Raul. Sorry. Shout out to Raul. Shout out to Samara. Shout out to William. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 400 likes. We're only 61 away from 100 likes. Shout out to Harper. Shout out to Alexandrine. Shout out to Hazel. Whoops, Hazel. Shout out to Brandon. Shout out to Piper. Shout out to Papyrus. Oh no, I forgot how to spell that. Oh, there you are. Shout out to Valeria. Shout out to Lyric. Thank you for showing me how to pronounce your name. Shout out to Riley. Shout out to Macy. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Rixa. Shout out to Faith. Shout out to Donna and Mariana. Shout out to June and Clara. Shout out to Trista. Shout out to Isabella. Shout out to Candice. Shout out to Nora. Shout out to Chloe. Shout out to Diana. Shout out to Chase. Shout out to Skylar. Shout out to Everly. Shout out to Razie. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Lexi. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Zaya. Thank you for subscribing. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Roman. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Sherlyn. Shout out to Aizawa. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Javier or Xavier. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Aliana. Oh, how do you spell that? Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Rose. Shout out to Ramiel. Shout out to Liddy. Shout out to Layla. Whoops. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Pearl. Shout out to Laura. Shout out to Sarah. Shout out to Nitty. Shout out to Lily. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Keel. Shout out to Fran. Shout out to Roscoe. Shout out to Yanis. Shout out to Andrea. Shout out to Sonia. Shout out to Crystal. Shout out to Leanne. Shout out to Fabian. Shout out to these people. Thank you so much for being here. Like and subscribe so you know when I do the next live stream. So please subscribe, please support me. I truly appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time to write your name out. Okay, take care. I think I might do another live stream today. Okay, so subscribe so you know when my live is on. Have a great day or a great night. Take care. Bye.